So I read a letter a little earlier that I hope you were listening to, and that's a letter from Gerhard Papenfus addressed to Julius Malema. And I'm very pleased to have the man himself, Gerhard Papenfus, not Julius Malema, here in studio, although I think Ed might have wanted it the other way around. So Gerhard, welcome to studio.
Thank you, Ivor.
It must have taken a great deal of bravery for you to step outside of your business function, which is as CEO of the National Employer Association of South Africa, to write a letter like this in your personal name.
You know, it would have been harder not to do it. This is something that grows within you, and to suppress that will be even harder. I think we have to take the fight to win, if you can call it a fight. And we have to come into the open. There are a lot of people that's sitting there, and the business community is a bit timid on this issue. And somehow this guy has become a bit untouchable, and he's getting away with a lot now. Well, so I had to come out and say what I think to get my own chest clean.
It certainly seems that the EFF, that Julius Malema, that Nlozi, that they all seem to cherish the opportunity, to love the opportunity of being counter-institutional. So if it's in court, of saying the wrong thing; if it's in the press, of saying the wrong thing; of tackling the politically incorrect all of the time. But besides the blustering, do you think that these guys that they have some kind of substance or gravitas behind their threat of civil war against the white community in this country? Are they organized enough for that to happen?
Well, I don't think so at the moment. The problem is that the moment you engage in this type of rhetoric, it escalates. Nothing in life remains the same.
Well, you say
it
that
either
in your
go
letter,
up or down, left or right.
You say that in your letter.
Yeah.
You talk about planting the seed,
Yeah.
implying that even if it's not your intention,
Yeah.
you might very well spark something that you haven't accounted for.
And even in terms of your own rhetoric, it will increase. I've spoken about the situation that took place in Germany. If you were to ask Adolf Hitler in 1928 to 1932, where do you think this all will end up? He would not have told you that this will be this miserable failure in 1945. But this thing escalated, and you surround you with people that encourages you to do more. You always give the extra step, and you become more bold and more bold, and this is so. If this is going to continue, this may lead to that. But that is not just a one-sided fight. When you go into civil war, when people talk this language, they don't know what civil war is like. If you want to go to Sierra Leone, and go and look and see what is civil war.
Yes.
Because if you want to wipe out a nation, they're not going to sit back and allow you to do that.
And
So
you
don't know what you do.
Let's be specific about something here. You're talking about wanting to go to war with a group of our community, with a community within a community that has substance,
Yeah.
that has order, that has organization, that has training,
Yeah.
and that is armed. There's no question about it. Legally armed
Yeah.
for self-protection purposes. So you are taking on an organized force in the process.
When you put a particular people with their backs against the wall, you're saddle for yourself quite a dangerous horse. And I think here's a community that's really making a huge contribution towards our economy. And they are criticized for this. They do not get the recognition. You go to the farms, you see what they do. They do miraculous stuff.
Yes.
And everything is against them. But these guys must understand this is not a bunch of weak people. They're not weak.
Gerhard, I want to talk about institutions for a moment.
Yeah.
Because if you look at how quickly the South African Human Rights Commission dealt with Penny Sparrow,
Yeah.
and yet has failed to deal with any black onslaught against the white community, either via Twitter, Facebook, or in fact in terms of interviews on television, countless times that leadership within the black community, commentators within the black community, have made absolutely disparaging, similar comments about the white community. And so as an institution, do you think that the South African Human Rights Commission has in fact served this country well in this instance?
No, I don't think so. But there's there's this vibe in the nation that certain things are now very important. The tide has changed. There's a few days ago there was these two white guys with a young guy in a coffin. All this thing. I mean, there's nothing good to say about it. Of course, it's appalling. So right, but I wrote an article in it. With this very letter appeared in Sowetan, and just before I came in, I read, somebody sent me a note that was written by somebody, and he said, that Gerhard Papenfus was complaining about what Julius Malema said. But Julius didn't kill anybody. But two people put a young black guy in a coffin, and we haven't heard Gerhard Papenfus saying anything about that. The thing is, I also didn't say something when my own parents was left for dead in the field, in a farm attack. I mean, there are not millions, sorry. A couple of thousand farmers have been killed in horrific circumstances, and nobody is turning up in courts in great numbers. This is just where we are, and nobody is talking about it. The media will not even pick up on it. Mm-hmm. So, it's very unfortunate, and this is creating a situation which will become more and more difficult, and people that used to be very accommodating is now less accommodating. So Mr. Malema is not helping anybody in this situation, and I think when I walk in the world, when I do my thing, the attitude of people are actually very, very well. I mean, I don't see, if somebody asks me, to what extent are you treated badly by black people, I'll say never. Doesn't happen. Yeah. I think I'm always treated wonderfully. So I hear about racism and I read about it, but I don't experience it. But it's happening on places where I don't necessarily come. Mm-hmm. But he is inciting things. He's awakening a thing to even this. It might plant a seed in other people's mind, and it might plant a seed in my mind where I start to get skeptical. And if I say me, I'm talking universally now.
If you take the performance of the EFF in the local council elections, 10%, essentially 5.5 million people in this country would be considered in a national election, therefore, if it translates, to be supporters of the EFF. 5.5 million people can do a lot of harm.
Well, of course, you see what is happening here is that if you have 1 million radical supporters, you have a lot of supporters.
Yes.
And you can do a lot of harm because the majority of people are actually passive, and this is what's happening here. It's like the frog in the lukewarm water, where people just think something is going to happen. At the end, people have to come out of their houses and do something about this. And the passive people will have to stop certain things. Mm-hmm. Will come out and need to get after 1 million supporters. 1 million supporters is a huge number of supporters, and they can do a huge amount of. Because people, they know that other people will be just bystanders in this whole thing, so we'll have to come out. And I think, to some extent, when Julius is doing this, it creates no fear within me. I mean, on a scale from 0 to 100 in terms of fear, it's exactly 0. But it annoys me to some extent that he thinks I'm scared. So I need to tell him I'm not. I'm really not. But I feel sorry for the country, because once you've dragged this country down to a certain point, and he's not thinking. He's just not thinking. And within the state of mind that he is, I don't think he can think.
Let's be positive for a second, if we can.
Yeah.
What is it going to take for us to move beyond this point? In other words, the rational, sound-minded citizen of South Africa, black or white, what is it going to take to move beyond this point and have a certainty of a future beyond Julius Malema? And you're speaking for yourself, you're not speaking for a community.
A day or two I was invited to a meeting of business people. A meeting is still coming up for the establishment of a broad middle ground. There's but the term middle ground is when I look at it and I think, this is a kind of a talk shop where people talk, and when you come back in a month's time and they talk again, and they talk and they talk and they talk. I decided to sort of take the opposite approach, and people will call that right wing. They do. I don't belong to any right-wing party. I'm not a member of any Afrikaner institution, right-wing body. I belong to nothing. I'm just me. And so I'm so far from the racist. But the moment you go into that position, people brand you.
You're not a fundamentalist. That's what you're saying.
Not at all. Very, very far from that. But I think certain things are going to play out. I think certain fruit has to come right. You know, people, you can't, and sometimes you can't convince somebody to do something. He needs to see for himself that what he's doing is wrong. Mm-hmm. And that will take time, and there might even be a bit of a price involved. But in the meantime, I tell my children, live flat out. I mean, now is the time to go big.
Yeah.
Because by withholding all the talents that I have is the worst thing that I can do. And the so-called sword over my head, just ignore it and do whatever you are supposed to do today. Invest, build, buy, create, as if you're going to live in a wonderful environment for 1,000,000 years. Because the things that we fear might not happen at all. And even if it ever happens, it will happen totally different from what we think it might happen. It might look totally different, and there will be sufficient grace and wisdom in that moment to deal with it. So will I hold back? Not at all. I'm going flat out.
Gerhard Papenfus, thanks for being in studio. Thank you for coming into studio for this discussion. I think it's been very, very important, and I'm sure this won't be the last of these discussions.
Thank you, Ivor. Thank you very much.